So let's talk about the legal matter of the calendar. I'm not trying to pick on anybody or minimize somebody else. I think we already have enough of that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to share with you why I follow the calendar that I follow and give you, to the best of my ability, the evidence that I have to do so. Okay? And I'm going to ask some questions. And there are some requirements that are connected with the temple. This is a little annoying here. Yeah, it came on loose. It came loose. So all the feasts are connected with the temple. And I think the mistake that we make is when we talk about calendars, we never consider the new moon celebration, for example. There's an organization in Spanish who is celebrating Rosh Chodesh, the new moon or the renewed moon, as a Sabbath. They do the lighting of the candles. They pick a special offering. They're doing everything as if it was a regular Sabbath. And I'm going like, what are you doing? Okay. Then you have so many different nuances about interpretation. But one of the things that I did a long time ago, I went to see Joe for a week to study with him every day, all day long. And I wanted to understand only chapter 28 and 29 of the book of Numbers. And chapter 8, 28 and 29 speaks about the Musaf. Musafim, or the Musaf, are the additional offerings. These are the offerings that take place between the Tamid and the Mincha, the morning and the afternoon offerings. They're very important because even the counting of the Omer, which is a huge controversy right now, if you read the verse in Leviticus 23, verse 9 and 10, it tells you that the Omer is not really official until the priest waves it in the temple. So you cannot determine the counting on the Omer based on your own reckoning of time, because according to temple protocols, it was only official when it was waved in the temple, and there was a procedure because it included sacrifices. Therefore, the korbanos and the offerings, they needed to be offered first so that you can eat. No one can eat of the new grain of the harvest until the priest waved it in the temple. Then Yeshua was the first fruit of the dead. But there's not one verse in the Bible and the Torah and the prophets that literally tells you that Yeshua needed to resurrect on the day when the counting of the Omer. There isn't any. That is something that we get reading 1 Corinthians 15, verse 20 and 23. That Yeshua is the first fruit of the dead, right? So let me ask you a question in regards to 1 Corinthians, and then I get into the topic. And I want to really provoke you to think based on the questions, because we do this with everything biblically. We try to give it our own understanding based on our own reckonings of time and based on our own dogma, and we try to fix or trying to fit something round into a square peg, and then we force it to fit our own understanding. Let me ask you this. You don't have to answer. I want to provoke you to thought. When Paul wrote that, to the Corinthians, I went to Turkey and Greece. I went to the places that the Bible talks about that for 2 years in a row is life-changing. Where was Paul writing the letter from? What time of the year was he writing the letter to? Okay? Because we don't know the audience. We read 1 Corinthians. They're in Corinth. But Paul was not in Corinth. He was in Ephesus. What time of the year? Well, the Bible, chapter 5 says, let us celebrate Passover with, and chapter 16 says, I'm staying in Ephesus until Pentecost. Meaning that he is teaching them about the problem in Corinth. The problem in Corinth is idolatry, immorality, and also the lack of belief in the resurrection within the group of believers in Corinth. That's why he wrote chapter 15. It's all about resurrection. So he is using the time frame, Pesach to Pentecost, which you have the harvest, barley and wheat, and then he's conveying the message and what those things represent to the church in Corinth during the time frame when they're celebrating the feast in Israel to a congregation who are moving away from Torah and denouncing the resurrection of Yeshua. So Yeshua resurrected as the first fruits of the dead. Amen and amen. But he doesn't have to resurrect exactly on the same day that they're waving the Omer. That is something we made up because we're trying to make sure, well, if he did not resurrect on the day of the Omer, he's not the Messiah. Where do you get that from? By the way, how do I know? Because I used to teach that. I'm guilty of that. And I have to go back and equip myself. Can you do me a favor, brother? Can you please pick up that book? Can you come around from this side and share and give it to me real quick, please? This side. Thank you so much. Now the middle. That book is called Avodat Korbanot, okay? And it's important that you consider getting this book. It's a really great resource. Thank you, brother. Yeah. This book right here, Avodat HaKorbanot. And this book outlines for you every single step of every offering. Okay, now on page 240 something, and I'm only bringing this up because we were talking about it last night, and it tells you every single step of the offerings. Okay, I'll see if I find it here. But it has what is called the offering of the Omer. It's to what? Yeah, 244. It actually, the reaping of the Omer, it tells you exactly how it was done in the temple. By the way, Josephus, a primary source, validates this. He actually talks about it in the, forgot the book now, but he talks about it and he says it's the 16th of Nisan. Okay, I'm not going to, this is not the topic that I'm talking about today, but we have the information. And the reason is, if you didn't have 1 Corinthians 15, verse 20 and 23, we would not have this argument today. Think about it. If you didn't have 1 Corinthians 15, verse 20 and 23, which now says Yeshua is the firstborn of the dead, which he is, then we will not have a problem connecting the 16th of Nisan as the day where the waving was done in the temple. And then Yeshua did resurrect on the third day, the 17th, becoming the first fruits of the dead. Because, by the way, the text says that the new grain cannot be eaten, and it's not the Omer is not ripened. Offered, until it's offered, then no one can eat of the new grain. Did that make sense? So that is connected with the calendar, because you cannot have the Omer being counted unless you cite the moon, the proper time to determine Nisan. Now, why is this important to know? And I could expand on this later. Write your questions, and then we're going to open a spot sometime today to maybe answer some questions about this stuff, okay? Now, I'm not trying to tell you that I'm 100% correct or that you have to believe everything I said. I don't want you to believe what I said. I want you to go back and look it up. We spent, an hour and a half last night, Howard, talking about this? And then once we presented the whole thing, you say, I haven't heard some of those things. And then Shane came up with something that I never even thought about. Oh, wow, okay. But we need to look at the legal matter of the calendar. Now, the religious matter, the legal aspect of it. Because there's a lot of confusion today. There's the siding, there's a sliver, there's a conjunction, vernal equinox, and now there's a sadok. Eventually, there'll be the Trinitarian one. And I don't mean to be funny, but it's getting out of hand to the point that there's so much confusion that we we have like 5 Enoch calendar. But we're going to look at the evidence that we have and find out which ones the disciples followed, which one the Yeshua followed. And then if Yeshua followed it and the disciples followed it, then why now we're finding fault with it when they were there in the first century and they're the ones who witnessed everything and the temple was there? If there was so much corruption in the temple that everyone was illegitimate, then why would Paul go to Jerusalem to celebrate the feast? And how come Yeshua never said anything? These are holy things. Yeshua would have definitely said something about this stuff. Specifically about the appointed times, because they are appointed times. There are 4 calendars in the Bible. Now, I want you to notice that you have Nisan. You have the Nisan right over here. And then you have Tishri. Okay? The calendar was important in the ancient world for regulating agricultural, religious, and legal activities. Please remember that the calendar in the Bible, specifically when it goes off of Nisan, is based on the agricultural cycles. I never understood why it had to be in the spring, like everybody else, like the Canaanites, like the Hittites, Mesopotamians, and even Greece and Rome. As a matter of fact, when I was in Corinth last year, I kind of started reading from the 1 Corinthians, and then I asked the question, okay, I understand when the barley is ripe in Israel, but when is the barley ripe in Corinth? Because it's a different geographical location. Maybe about 2 or 3 weeks later. It's a difference in time. That's why I have to change my tour to Asia Minor and Greece next year. I wanted to do it this November, But the guy said, no, if you want to come here, the best weather is in October. So wait a minute. In Israel, the best weather is in November. So he says, March is the best weather here in Turkey for your tours, or April. Interesting. You learn something new. So you have to consider horticulture. You have to consider the agricultural cycles. And I want to show to you today, hopefully, that in order to follow any calendar, it has to be perfectly united with the agricultural cycle. The calendar and the agriculture. That's the way it functions. Go to Genesis chapter 18, 14, please. I want to give you an example of the importance of this. When you go to Genesis chapter 14, chapter 18. I apologize. 18 verse 14. You're going to read a verse. When you read that verse, you got to go back to the Hebrew to really get it. Is anything impossible for the Lord? I will return to you when the season comes around again, and Sarah will have a son. You see, but you have to remember, when you go back to the Hebrew, it says, I will come to you. These are three angels speaking with Abraham. So now we know when he was speaking to Abraham and Sarah, it was actually in the spring. And some of your Bible says the time of life. How many of your Bible says the time of life? There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what is the time of life in biblical reckoning? It's the spring. Now we know why Yeshua resurrected in the spring. It was known to the ancient world that the time of life is actually the spring, because winter is death, spring is life. Rain is life. The rains come, now you have the spring, now you have life, resurrection. First fruits, it's about that. To give to God the first fruits of the dead, because the seed dies and then resurrects to produce fruit. Get it? It's the same parallels. So when you understand the season, it's a moed. I will come to you, return to you when the season comes around next year. It doesn't say that, but if I look up at the Hebrew, and I have a really good Hebrew speaker here. So let's go there real quick. I'm doing this to you today, Rachel. And it's important that we do that, because when I'm trying to share things with you, I want you to consider. So, Rachel, do me a favor. Can you please come over real quick and read this for us? I'm sorry. I'm embarrassing you. I don't mean to. Rachel's a Hebrew teacher at a congregation. An amazing Hebrew teacher. If you want to learn Hebrew, she's the one. Okay? Go ahead and read verse 14, please.
היפלא מאדוני
A little
דבר,
louder for me.
היפלא מאדוני דבר, למועד אשוב אליך, כעת חיה ולשר אבן.
Ka'et haya, right? It's like a time of life. Thank you. Let me see. Thank you so much. Okay? Self-taught Hebrew. She's never been to Israel. Okay? So this is what we do in our congregation. Pastors are here, and we're actually reading now from the scroll. I got to learn how to read from the scroll now. So, Ka'et haya. I asked my friend in Israel who's a rabbi. He goes, oh, yeah, that's a spring. But the text doesn't say it. So you understand that the Bible deals with times and seasons. So we have to learn the calendars from that perspective, meaning that Sukkot, according to Leviticus, must take place after the harvest is gathered. So you cannot celebrate Sukkot if the harvest have not been gathered. You cannot celebrate Passover, you determining the barley, because Joe just told you and gave you a huge clue. He says the lambs and the goats belong to certain areas around Jerusalem. So did the barley. They were actually taking care of the barley because it's connected with the divine. It's connected with the temple. It's connected with sacred space. Thus, the priests were the one who can actually declare the barley ripened. Not you, not me. The funny thing is, the guys that puts in the sliver of the moon in Jerusalem and the guy who goes around looking for it is a friend of mine. And he doesn't follow all the stuff that everybody does. He puts the picture, but he goes, no, that's just for practice. I follow the regular calendar Hillel that everybody else does. And then I said, why do you put it up? It's creating confusion. He goes, that's their problem. I said, thank you, my friend. I appreciate all the stuff you're giving me, all the work. So there are 4 calendars in the Bible. We're not really going to cover all of them, but we're going to mentioning them. The lunar calendar, right? You have the new year usually occurred in the spring. at the beginning of the growing season, and the month of Nisan, March, April. The Passover occurred in the first month. You already know this. Okay, it's a commemoration. Feast of Trumpets occurred during the 7th month. Okay, lunar calendar, a calendar in which months were reckoned by the lunar cycle and years by the seasonal cycle. People say that, well, Babylon had the new year in the spring. Well, yeah, for 12 days, the Akitu ritual they did. So now we're going to stop celebrating Passover in the spring because the Babylonians did it too. So did the Canaanites. So did the Hittites. I mean, we're not understanding the contrast between countries and what it means to bring the first fruits to God instead of them bringing it to their gods. It's a message of ownership and authority over creation. Now, Nisan, the Babylonian name for the first month in the lunar calendar, is used by the Jews. Well, okay, Nisantu, okay, Nisan. Aviv is a spring. It's a Canaanite word, right? So now we're going to stop saying Aviv? Because people say, well, you can't say Nisan, that's Babylonian. Then you cannot say Aviv either. Our lack of understanding of context, it keeps guiding us to isolate ourselves in a corner. And then when people don't agree with us because we're not researching, then we complain and we fight and we don't talk to nobody. And I think it's creating a problem. Feast of Trumpets, a day of rest, observed in the first day of the 7th month, announced by the trumpet blast. Tishri, the Babylonian name for the 7th month of a lunar calendar used by the Jews. That's the name. Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah means head of the year. What type of the year? The civil calendar. I'm going to be a little bit more precise, more to the point. I don't mean to be sarcastic. I'm not trying to be a know-it-all, but actually there has to be a counterbalance of information so that you have the better opportunity to weigh out the evidence and you can make a better choice. Don't be deceived or don't be impressed by anyone who gives you sources, accommodating it according to their own understanding. You make sure that you demand that the sources are well supplied and understood. Just because I quote you a book, hey, Ernest Martin, The Temples Jerusalem Forgot, I could just tell you, hey, great book. It's completely illegitimate book according to the archaeological evidence about the temple. He's the one who created the mess about the city of David being the location of the temple. Now, mind you, he actually helped Benjamin Mazar, Elat Mazar, those people doing archaeological stuff. He presented that thesis to Benjamin Mazar, and Benjamin was being nice to him. This was told to me and Joe by his granddaughter, Elat Mazar. So Dr. Benjamin Mazar sent him to Elat Mazar, and Elat Mazar was the one who discovered the Palace of David. So basically, she says, the evidence does not support your thesis. That's what I got from her. Evidence establishes truth. She's the one who said that day. You know, and therefore now, how can he still put out a book after 6 months of research? If you read the introduction, the acknowledgement, that's what he says. And why would the world follow, you know, what that person says with 6 months of research, that to the point that if you don't study the temple, you're going to follow the latest sensationalism? When you have somebody like Joe, who can actually tells you, you see that stone in the southeast corner? That stone over there was placed there in this year by this people. That's not good enough. We want the sensationalism. We want the things that don't line up because we want a word on the last days to be so important that people will pay attention to us. That's a problem because then now we're changing holy things. And when you have an opinion about a verse, it's not a problem. The problem is when you change things that are what are holy to God. That's the problem. You don't realize how many things I had to change in order to be able to deal with these things. Okay, so you have your notes in your book. I'm not going to necessarily read everything, but I want to get more to the point of the verses that I want to get to, okay? Now, it says, the Mishnah, a collection of Jewish rabbinic teachings and interpretation of biblical passages that were compiled around the year 200. In Judaism, the Mishnah is believed to reflect the authoritative oral tradition passed down over the centuries. But a little bit more, it's actually outlining for us the rulings and the way things were done in the temple. Okay? Now, it's interesting. People want the book of Enoch, which is not in the Bible. It's not canonized. It's in one of the religions of the Bibles, but it's not considered as a canonized book today. You don't even know who Enoch was. It's not the Enoch of the Bible. It's a pseudo-writer. But we want to use that as is legit, but we don't want to consider the evidence by Josephus, who was there, or Philo, who was actually and living in the first century somewhere around there. Contemporaries with the disciples and the apostles. We're not really doing scholarship, guys. And this is the reason why I completely moved away from religious thing more into the academic area. Understanding that we live a lifestyle according to the Torah, but I need to learn how to validate information so that when you listen to me, it's not my interpretation. I could give you my opinion, but I want you to learn how to see it, understand it. And then when you see it, you go, oh, I need to make an adjustment. That's why I respected Howard last night. Because he goes, I never thought about what you say. Let me look it up. He saw it, and he starts, oh, man, I'm thinking about that. I may have to change a few things. That's honest. Because he never heard both sides, right? And we do that when it comes, we move so fast on the latest trend in the Hebrew Roots movement that we lose our, when you go shooting, you have to, the most important thing is the master grip and sight. If you don't breathe correctly, you miss the sight. You have to know even how to do those things, right? And we are trying to shoot at everything theologically. We don't hit anything. Is that making sense? Yeah. And we do that biblically. We see something, no, I think, oh my God, that to me, the revelation of the Lord. Excuse me. Everything has been given to us for us to understand. The revelation is when we don't understand the context, when we are removed from the culture, right? Like, for example, quick example. I went to Sardis, the city of Sardis that the Bible, the book of Revelation, talks about. And it's very weird. Each church addresses something different. And I'm thinking, why is it addressing something different? I was there last year. I didn't catch on to it. Then I'm reading a book by, I forgot his name, from the 1800s to 1900s. And then they're talking about, Sardis, that I'll come to you as a thief in the night. Well, I said, wait a minute. The other churches, nothing like that is mentioned. Why only here? When I began to do history research on the city of Sardis, which money was actually developed there, very rich with gold. But the Parthians and the Romans, they did something very interesting. They conquered the city through a bridge, a low undefensible area in the wall, in the middle of the night, by the Parthians and the Romans. So the point in the book of Revelation is dealing with something that actually happened in history. That's only one example. I can give you one example of every single one of the churches of Revelation. Blows me away. So is the Sadok calendar a legal calendar? I'm not saying whether or not they make a valid point. That's not the point. Whether it is a legal calendar. Now, this teaching is not designed to refute that calendar. The teaching is designed for you to know why I don't follow that calendar. Big difference. Why don't I subscribe to it and why I stay away from it? We're going to let the evidence stand. And instead of just pointing fingers at who's teaching, they're entitled to express their thesis. But there has to be peer review. Do you know what a peer review is? You don't do peer review with people who don't know the subject matter. And this is one thing we need to remember. Peer review is done by people who are experts in the same area. It is not honest to do a peer review with people who cannot actually push back with you and tell you, excuse me, you need to consider this, consider that, consider that. It's not honest. At least academically, it's not honest. Not that the person's not honest. Does that make sense? We need to weigh it out. Listen, if I follow something, Joe can tell you, Joe, how many things have I changed since you met me? 1 million. I was hoping you would say 999,000, but no. But in the beginning, did I kind of fought on it a little bit? Or I say, just show me. I want to see it. And then he presented it. Then I went back and I looked and I said, oh, man, he's right again, And some things I may not agree with because I'm studying different things, but I listen to what he says and I consider it. I meditate on it. And then I find information that validates it. And then when he makes a point that maybe it's not on par, then I submit something to him, have you consider this? And he actually sits there and listens. He's my teacher, but he listens. There's an exchange. And that's what I'm hoping we can develop. It doesn't have to be a debate. It's a conversation. But are we so afraid to be wrong that we don't want to develop this and talk to people because we don't want pushback? You know, the last six months I've had the honor to do some podcasts. I don't know if you've seen it, with some high-level scholars. I get to do podcasts with Joe, with Mark Chavalis. He's got all kinds of books, and now Roy Gain. You know, and also another gentleman that I did for Honor and Shame. And you know one thing that so impacted me about these people? I'm talking about these are the top tier guys in their fields in the world. They're not just some guy in the corner. I'm talking about they have the doctorates, and one guy that I had a meeting with this week, he was a direct student of Jacob Milgram. I don't know if you know who he is. He's the standard of the book of Leviticus in the world. I had an opportunity to talk to the guy. Some things I didn't agree with him, right? He's an Adventist. But when it comes to the context of Leviticus, he's on point. When it comes to something else, he doesn't see things the right way. But you know, he said something about circumcision. I said, can I push back? He said, okay, to push back. Yeah, tell me what the difference is. I'm going like, that's new. It was like, wow. And then afterwards, he said, man, I really like the flow, how you ask questions, you go from there, and said, hey, I really appreciate the fact that you don't mind being challenged in a good way academically. He says, this is how we learn. And I'm going like, I want to be like that. Mark Chavalis is the same way. So I don't understand. Why is it that we cannot understand that we don't know everything, that we're still learning? And one of the things that really impressed me is that every time I ask a question about something they don't know in somebody else's field, you know what they do? You know, that's not my area. How many times have you seen that with Mark? And you know what he does immediately afterwards, which I highly respect, and Joe does it too, is, I don't know that, but let me recommend an article and a book of the guys who know. We do not do that within the body. We don't do that. We don't know a topic, and you know somebody who knows it, but because we're trying to be so possessive with the sheep, we don't want to allow the people of God called to be experts in those areas to help you complement what the leadership is doing. That's the motivation for this type of conference. To help you and equip you so when you go back, you have tools. Yes? Evidence in the first century calendar. After the resurrection of Yeshua, Yeshua never mentioned anything about any problems with the calendars or before, ever. That's the first red flag. Again, this is not designed to criticize anyone teaching the other calendar. This teaching is designed to explain to you, I owe you that, why I don't follow the calendar. That makes sense? I'm going to give you my reasons. I may be wrong, but I'm going to give you my best, thesis for you to study and measure it out. Yeshua never said anything about a new calendar. Yeshua never said anything about a new priesthood. Yeshua never told the apostles to stop going to the temple. Yeshua never spoke against the temple offerings. Yeshua never told the disciples to stop following the feast in the first century. So the evidence, if we are honest, then is pointing to something different. You know, the Qumran community is a source. They're not the legal authority to declare anything. Joe studies the Qumran community, right? You study that stuff. It's invaluable. I mean, that is so valuable for us to know. But they do not dictate and go over the authority that got established. And we don't get it. The reason why we have so much chaos is that we don't understand legal authority biblically. I did not either. Who had the authority to declare the feast and sacred times? We're going to go through all of this. Numbers, chapter 18. It says, Adonai said to Aaron, you and your sons and your family will bear the guilt. And I just learned something from J. Sklar, another scholar of the book of Leviticus, and also from William Gilders, that when it uses that word, bury the guilt, that's a death penalty, folks. They're the ones who actually carry the penalty for transgressing the holy things. So if you want to do a brand new priesthood and you consider yourself a priest in the order of something that God never ordained, then understand that if you change anything holy, you bear the responsibility. Because God did not appoint any others except the sons of Aaron. That was the point of the story of Korah. Korah, chapter 16, usurps the authority of Moses and Aaron. And then you have the testing. You have the plague, and then you have the incense, whatever, and then you have the staffs. To remove rebellion. To remove it as a witness. And we still don't get it. And then in chapter 18, God says, Adonai said to Aaron, you and your sons and your family with you will bear the guilt of the sanctuary, and you and your sons with you will bear the guilt of your priesthood, sons of Aaron. Now remember, they were anointed, sanctified, and they were consecrated, right? I mean, that particular ritual is not found anywhere in the New Testament to proclaim the order of Melchizedek in regards to the body of Messiah. For Yeshua, yes, but not for anybody else. How do I know? Because I used to teach it. And again, I was wrong. And I had to pull 3 teachings off the market because I taught it wrong. Thank you, Joe, for ruining me. I appreciate you. Moreover, bring your brothers with you, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your father, that they may be joined to you, a minister to you and your sons with you before the tent of testimony. They will keep the responsibility and the responsibility of all the tent. Only they may not come near the vessels of the sanctuary and the altar. Wait a second. The moment that God says that in Numbers, Moses says that because God told him to. So both you and they will not die. The moment that they're saying anything related to the altar is in the realm of holiness, and it belongs to the priests, not the Levites. Now, I never caught on to this until I went to study with Joe for that whole week. We'll get up in the morning thinking I'm going to beat him to the office. Woke up at 7. I get up, I'm going to go out there. He's already sitting reading for about an hour before I show up. Made me look bad. Anyway, so the moment I understood the musaf, right, all the additional offerings that were done for the feast, for the new moon, for the Sabbath, for the special Sabbath, on the holidays and the holy convocations, then it's removed from the domain of the profane or the common, and it moves into the holiness. No one can touch it. Only the priest can do that, right? And now the reason why every single controversy among our ranks is dealing with exactly everything the book of Leviticus covers. Kedusha, holiness. If you study the book of Leviticus and you really, really study it out on the temple, we're not going to have these issues. That's why none of the Jews have any problem with the calendar. It's only us. I mean, they've been doing it a long time. They understand these things. Yes? Okay, so it says, the key here is connected with the altar. Not even the Levites can touch anything connected with the altar. It's zar. It means a illegitimate person, a stranger. Zar in the Hebrew is different than the goy. Everyone understood that a Gentile could not do that. But an illegitimate, an Israelite, could not touch anything with the altar. And we see an evidence of this when the king of Babylon, he tried to drink of the vessels of the temple and he died. He lost the whole kingdom because it's holy. So anyway, next. All of the sacred times were connected to the altar, blood manipulation, and the offerings. Have you ever studied blood manipulation in the Bible? In the book of Leviticus. Fascinating. Everything was done different. Some things were done different in the book of Leviticus 16 on the day of Yom HaKippurim. If you follow the way they manipulated the blood in certain offerings, then you know whether it was for individual, for communal, or national. Okay? That's something that we'll be talking more a little later. Numbers 28. Let's read there. I'm going to do a lot of reading. Daily offerings. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, command the children and say to them, you will be careful to present my offering, my food, of my offerings made by fire, of a fragrance and appeasement to me, at its appointed time, meaning that it cannot be at our interpretation, but the way it has been set. That's very important that we understand the appointed times. Oh, we follow the feast. When are you meeting? Oh, next month. But that was already happening. No, it's okay because according to our calendar, now you transgress on God's holy things. I mean, tell your wife, hey, honey, anniversary, we're going to do it a month later. Why? Because I care. It's my revelation. Okay. You will say to them, this is the offering made by fire that you will offer to the Lord. 2 male lambs without defect in the first year as a continual burnt offering each day. Let's move on to verse 6. It is a continual burnt offering that was ordained on Mount Sinai as a fragrance offering. In other words, this comes from Mount Sinai. It's not something made up by the rabbis. So if you want to follow the new moon, you can see the new moon, right? but there's not really much you can do about it. It's a memorial, and we're trying to follow the calendar according to the reckoning and counting now. But you cannot declare any month for your own reckoning of calendars because it's already connected with the altar, mitzvah. The moment you connect these things with the altar, it's no longer the realm of the profane, but the holy. And only certain people can handle those things, in this case, the priest. This makes sense. Yes? Okay, good. Still the introduction. Said a lot, you said? Really? That's great. Thank you. So now you have the Israelites. We have the festivals. These are all the verses, the references. Yes. What happened? What happened? Oh, are you disconnected? Yes. Yeah, in a minute. Give me 1 second. Yeah, because there's a little bit of. What am I looking for? What am I connecting to, Tito? Yeah. Careful. Oh, I thought about that. That's pretty good. You see? My sister's thinking. Ah. See? Thank you. Tito, no sé cómo hacer esta vaina. Is it the internet you want? Got it? Edit. Reclaiming my time.
We're getting there. This would be my chance to strangle you, right?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm sorry I offended you with the calendar.
Exactly.
Got it?
There we go.
Thank you so much.
How's that?
All right. Come the simple things I can't do. Sign of age, right? Man. Sorry, don't help me. I got it. So what'd you do during the teaching? Trying to fix my little button. No, Daniela, ayúdame aquí. I got it right here. Fingers. Good to punch. No, you're good. Thank you so much. Gracias. All right. Here we go. Where was I? Oh, did I cover this? Yes, I did. Okay. That. Okay, so now let's talk about the legal matter of the calendar. I'm going to cover all those points, A through E. Leviticus and the context, Matthew 23, Deuteronomy 16, 1 Kings, and then Exodus 23. And really, I want to do all this just to get to Exodus 23. Trying to give you the whole thing, to get to the last thing. When I learned the last thing, then I realized that the calendar has to be done after the harvests. If it's done before, that's illegitimate. There's a rules. It's connected. It's not just the reckoning of time. This is the reason why if the Aviv is not ready, the barley, then what do? They add the other month. Because it's connected with the time of life. You cannot do it before the time of life. Because it represents resurrection. The whole theme of the whole spring is resurrection. So if you do it before or after you're moving out of its season, then the prophetic eschatological message is completely changed because every single one of the feasts has a prophetic meaning. Make sense? So therefore, the rabbis understand that. So they go, okay, we're going to have, the Aviv is not ready. I know we see the new moon, but the Aviv is not ready, and everything hinges on the Aviv being ready. Not the new moon. The Aviv determines that new moon. Now, for Rosh Hashanah, the new moon determines Rosh Hashanah. Get it? But not in the spring, and it has to be during the season. See, we read it, but we don't know why it's appointed for that time frame until you learn ancient Near East. When you learn ancient Near Eastern history, you know the importance of the spring as a time of life and the motif of resurrection. Thus, God is telling Israel, now your season for agricultural cycles will begin like everybody else's, except that the first fruits you bring to me. Everything reflects the God of Israel, who's the God of life, not the God of death. Make sense? All right, so the priest and the legal matter of the calendar, Leviticus chapter 23, let's cover every single one of these. And Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelites and say to them, The festivals of Adonai, it doesn't say festivals, by the way, in the Hebrew text. It doesn't appear as chagim. It says mikre chodesh, holy convocations. Important you know this. Okay, so in translation it says festivals. It doesn't say that in the Hebrew. It's holy convocations. Because Passover, the first day of unleavened bread, holy convocation, and the seventh day. Pentecost, holy convocation, and a feast. Unleavened bread is a feast with a holy convocation. Okay, Yom Teruah is not a feast. It's a holy convocation. Yom Kippur is not a feast. It's a holy convocation. Then Sukkot is a feast, first and last day, first and the eighth day, is a holy convocations. So all the feasts have holy convocations, but not all the holy convocations are feasts. And I never really understood that until I began to really pay attention to the text. And it happened when I went to study with Joe that one time. And then verse 44, watch this. The festivals of Adonai that you will proclaim are holy assemblies. They are my appointed times. Very important to remember. We do not respect God's appointed time, guys. We don't. Because, can I tell you why we don't? We want no connection with Jewish people now. That's really the reason. We're going backwards. Anything Jewish, we don't want. Because they don't know anything. They don't know Hebrew. They never kept the feast the right way. Everything's corrupt. The priesthood was corrupt, just like the president of the United States was corrupt. But doesn't mean the office is corrupt. That's the reason why there was not civil war during Biden. Why? Because we respect the office of the United States of America. We could care less about him. I didn't. Right? But I respect the office. You follow? So I follow the law, knowing that I don't like that guy, but he is doing the office that he was elected to do. Get it? We can respect, and we all submitted to this government, that government for 4 years, knowing there were problems. But then when God establishes his office, we change it because there was corruption with the people, but they bear the responsibility, not you. So if they don't do their work and you doing your job, they're the ones. That's why we have a Supreme Court, because it goes to the highest legal office, law. When they make the ruling, they're not to make up new laws. They are to interpret the Constitution, right? And we respect the rulings, even though we may not like the results. But we don't do that biblically. We change it. Okay, and that's a problem. In verse 44, I haven't finished, and proclaim. So Israel's job and the Sanhedrin Council is to proclaim the holy convocations, appointed times. And thus Moses announced to the Israelites the Adonai's appointed time. He declared them. Why? Because he was the leader of all the clans in the wilderness. There were 70 plus Moses. He is doing the work of the Nasi. Okay? He's doing the work of the Nasi, meaning that he had that authority to declare. Everyone comes together and then they declare. Okay? All right, now, Matthew 23, verse 1 and 2. Yeshua's recognition of the authority of Sanhedrin. I remember when I used to teach this completely out of context. In the beginning of our ministry, I was actually putting more kerosene into the fire. Until I began to really pay attention. Going to Israel, my tours allowed me to really understand a little bit more. Then Yeshua said to the crowd and to his disciples, the experts in the law and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. Therefore, pay attention to what they tell you and do it, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they teach. The whole problem in chapter 23 is not the commandment. It's actually the contrast between ritual purity and moral purity. And that's the one thing that when I learned it in Mark chapter 7, which everyone uses to minimize the commandment, is actually a contrast between ritual purity and moral purity. What Yeshua is really having issues with was not the Torah or even the customs. He's having issues with how some of the Pharisees were imposing upon the regular people outside the temple proper some ritual purities that would have been impossible for them to keep outside of the temple or the city of Jerusalem. You can correct me anytime you want, Joe, okay? Okay, so therefore, Yeshua is, and then you have mishpat v'sadakah, righteousness and justice. And you see this in some of the very strict ultra-Orthodox Jews. in Israel that they are so much into ritual purity, they have no connection with the world at all. So Yeshua is taking issue not with the Torah, not with the customs, not with the rulings. He's taking issue with the way they're applying the Torah in a self-righteous manner, trying to impose upon people who cannot do it outside the temple, and they're expecting them to do it at their level, and we do the same thing today. We try to get people beat up with the Bible. We want them to do what we do the way we do it. One of the things that I always admire with Joe, that he always allowed me room to adapt. He just shared the information, he walked away, and then when he come back, I'm making strides to get closer. And that requires maturity that sometimes we need to develop. I'm learning to do that. I just present the information, walk away. I don't want to convince you. That's not my job. Our job is to present facts. And then you do your best to validate it. And then the Spirit of God would actually, and once you see it, man, once you see it, no one can tell you it's not true. Once you understand it, then when you hear somebody else, you're going, what are they talking about? And then they're trying to push their agenda. You say, no, that's not what it says. And then you see how they are really about. Because when you challenge back and you don't agree with them and you have your facts, they'll do this. They'll minimize your resources, your intent, and they'll call you arrogant because you know the information. Because now you challenge their own revelation instead of focusing on God's revelation. And that's the one thing that I want to equip people to consider, looking into God's revelation through his word instead of creating our own interpretation of his word. That actually came out pretty good. Don't ask me to repeat that one. You didn't laugh. You guys are tough here. What was the judicial court established? To some people, this may be like common sense, but I want to be able to expound a little bit more on this. And we know this, so I'm going to repeat a few things. Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 18, verse 20, and verse 16, verse 18, and verse 20, and chapter 17. We are commanded to do judicial body, to have an authority. You shall appoint judges and officials for you in all your towns that Adonai your God has given you throughout your tribes, and you shall render for the people righteous judgments. And you shall not subvert justice, and you shall not show partiality. You shall not take a bribe, for the bribe makes the blind the eyes of the wise, and misrepresent the words of the righteous. Justice, justice, you shall pursue. We already know that. Chapter 17 deals with if a matter is too difficult for you. For example, disputes between blood and blood, between legal claim and legal claim, between assault, and between matters of discernment in your towns, then you shall get up and you shall go to the place that the Lord your God will choose. Now we have to talk about where did he choose to place his name. First, the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the wilderness, he placed his name there. Then Gilgal, he placed his name there. Then Shiloh, 96 years or 69, I don't remember. And then Nov in the time of Saul. Then Givon, 2 miles north of Jerusalem. And lastly, Jerusalem. Nowhere in the Bible you find the Qumran community being the location where God placed his name. Show me one verse. Just one verse. There isn't one. So why are we listening to rulings about calendars from the Qumran community when they were actually cowards? They were running away from their service in Jerusalem. There were chaos, there were issues. So what? Jewish people have issues all the time. They went to the Qumran. They didn't talk with anybody. They didn't want no engagement with anyone. They were so self-righteous. They tried to do great commentary on the Torah. We use some of the resources. I get it. But how can you not apply the authority of the holy things when nowhere in the New Testament Yeshua went to the Qumran looking for them to tell them when to keep the Sabbath and the feast and Passover? I mean, show me one verse where it says that. Just the fact that there was corruption in the high priesthood in the temple does not diminish the authority that God gave the authority to do so. Am I right or am I wrong? So I don't understand why we're listening and following something that legally holds no water. That case will be thrown out. Forget about theological positions. It's about legal action, where a lawyer will tell you, okay, according to the Bible, where's the evidence that Qumran community becomes now the location where God can be declared holy things? Just one verse. You need 2 witnesses. then you shall go to the place. Verse 9, then you should go to the priests and the Levites and to the judge who will be in office in those days. Wait a minute. Did he say to the priests, to the Levites, or the judges who you think they're corrupt? Remember, they bear the guilt. This is the one thing we miss. This is the thing that really makes sense to me. Now, oh, I get it. They were too busy in everyday life. So God says, okay, you want to lead? You bear the responsibility. If you change something holy, then you bear the responsibility. The people need to obey. Yes? This is making sense. But we want the responsibility. So when we change something holy, you bear the responsibility to touch the holy things. Go to my house and then try to walk around my house being uninvited, and then laid in my bed when I'm not there. Isn't that like encroaching? And you will be really offended if you invite me to your house and I'm walking around your whole house and I ended up laying down taking a nap in your bed, right? Are you going to invite me back? Ladies, if you're cooking and I tell you now how to cook and I criticize everything in your kitchen, are you going to invite me back? So why do we do it with holy things of God? By the way, where are the leaders, and where's the organization, and where's the accountability? Anyone today can go on the internet, do a teaching, show you 3 or 4 books, and then everyone follows. And that's fine. Show the information. But then allow it to be validated so that now, okay, let me listen to it. Man, I did not know that. I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell everybody what you're teaching because it's lining up with the Bible. And I will help you promote it if we can validate it. If there are problems in presentation, then we say, don't do it until you get the evidence. That's what Joe does. Right, Joe? How many times you're looking at something and says, don't present it because we're still working on it? So why can't we be accountable like that? To say, hey, guys, I have a thesis. It's just my opinion. Can I propose something to you? And then you study it out. Say, well, yeah, I've done that with my guys, Daniel and Juan, que está aquí. He's right here. And we study together. And the day that we study together, and all of a sudden now they're talking about one aspect of the topics, but because I'm studying different angles, I say, well, have you considered this and this? And they go, no, I haven't. Now we have a study. Now we start exchanging. Because if not, we're going to be pretty much like this. My way, the only way, and I'm right on this, no comparison. Okay, I hope you understand my motivation is to help us grow, not to diminish anybody. All right, you shall go to the priests, the Levites, and to the judges who will be in office in those days, and you shall inquire, and they shall announce to you the verdict. What would happen if the altar is erected today? What would happen if the Sanhedrin Council will be established and there's a high priest? You know they can call out the whole Hebrew roots movement. Say, wait a minute, why are you collecting the tithing and why are you setting calendars? And why are you doing this? And why are you doing that? And where's the order of leadership to defend their position? I mean, really, do you know what it will be? I mean, the disciples, they were confronted by the council, by the Sanhedrin Council. Did you know? The book of Acts tells us that they were confronted about the message of Yeshua. And Gamaliel was the leader of the Sanhedrin Council, and he defended the believers. They let them go, and the Bible says that they were free to preach about the gospel in the temple, meaning that the case for Yeshua was settled in the 1st century, meaning that they had the freedom to teach it in the temple, and they will be undisturbed until Paul came around. Yes? But they went and they proved their case. Peter beautifully explained the purpose of Yeshua. And he talked about it. And they were let go. They beat him up a little bit, but they let him go. Yes? Are we equipped to defend our faith where it matters? To the Jewish people, they come in through here. We had Orthodox being here before, right? Right, Joe? We had an Orthodox rabbi come visit us. And he was blown away with the stuff we were saying. I don't think he ever thought we would cover those things. One thing is to talk about these things with people who don't know. Another thing is trying to present the stuff to the people who know. They don't last 2 minutes over there. They know Hebrew better than me. They know the writings better than me. And we got to be right on point. We have a huge responsibility. Why would they follow Yeshua the way we're following the Torah? Why would an Orthodox be compelled to follow our faith when we can't even get together the times and seasons that God established. And if that guy, the Orthodox rabbi, will read the New Testament openly, he would challenge us and he would judge us rightfully, because Yeshua never once did anything against the authority in the first century. So we have no case any which way. And that's sad, because we've been called with so much resources, but I got one denominator, one common denominator. Every person that I know disregards the very thing we're studying in the house, the temple. They don't want to study it. Guys, you don't have to agree with me. It's okay, but I really appreciate you allowing me to, share my heart with you. Okay? All right, here we go. And then it says, and you shall carry out exactly the decision that they announced to you from the place of the Lord your God will choose. That's it. Focus on these verses. It's about the place where God will choose. Okay? ¿Hasta qué hora tengo, Tito? Wow. How come when Joe talks, it seems like 3 hours? What's up, man? You slowing time? 70 elders. I'm only going to give you the verses. I want to move on a little bit more. In Numbers 11, we have when God told Moses, and when the Lord said to Moses, bring me 70 elders. Guys, they were consecrated. Verse 18, tell the people, consecrate yourselves and prepare for tomorrow. Right? Then verse 17, I will come down and speak with you there, and I will take some of the power of the Spirit that is on you and put it on them. That was basically a consecration. They laid hands on them. That's right. That's a very important thing. That was continual in the Sanhedrin Council. Anybody who was new, they have to lay hands on them. They cannot be part of the Sanhedrin unless they laid hands, following suit on that. So yes, the calling of the office continues based on that ritual. They have to know certain things. They have to be credible. And then once they lay hands on them, it's basically a ratification. Correct? So to say that they don't carry the same authority is just not understanding the requirements of the temple, the requirements of how this was done. It's like the high priest. The high priest didn't need to be anointed all the time. That already happened, with Aaron and his sons. Everyone understood that line now are the people who would do the service in the temple. They were consecrated. The level of status was raised through the anointing. Okay? Making sense? You with me? Okay. So Moses went out and told the people that the Lord has said. He brought together 70 other elders and had them stand around the tent. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke with them. And he took some of the power of the Spirit that was on him and put it on the 70 elders. So the power of God now was eliminated, and the anointing of the Lord eliminated, because there was some corruption in the first century. The office is still holy. The office is still holy. Remember, they bear the guilt. They carry the responsibility. I know who's a good leader, who's not a good leader. When the leader does not take responsibility, I never follow him. Ever. Soldiers here? Any soldiers? Okay. Who would you rather be with? Somebody in the trench, right? If this guy runs away from you, are you going to trust him with your life? Everything is based on trust. That's why AWOL. No one will respect if you go AWOL. You're abandoning us in the middle of a war? You went on your own? It's okay to be afraid. Just don't leave us. Well, that's what's going on. We are abandoning things because they don't line up with us, with what the Bible says or what the people says. 3 courts of law were here in the Sanhedrin Council. One located at the entrance of the Temple Mount, another one at the door of the atrium of the temple, the third party in the chamber of hewn stone, which is actually right over here in the Beit Aptinas of the temple, right here. What were their functions? Let me go through their functions again. The Sanhedrin Council and their functions. I don't think sometimes we really understand this. 1, the chamber of hewn stone, Lishkat Hagasit, where the Beit Din was situated on the south side of the inner court of the temple. It was used for ritual purposes. 2, the priests drawing were done there in the daily services of the sacrifices, and also reciting the Shema. You find that in the tractate Tamid of the Mishnah. 2, the largest part of the chamber was located in the court for the laity. In other words, there are two Okay, this building, if I have the model, I will show you. Can you give me the big model, Joe, please? Right here, this is the big chamber, and the room was divided in half. The room was divided in half. This area here is most consecrated, and this one is more like less consecrated. So so an Israelite could be here, but it cannot go here. A Levite could be here, but it cannot go there. The priest can go on both sides. And it was delineated by elevation. Okay, so where they will meet was lower than the upper area of that same building, delineating sacred space. All right? Now, Kedusha, that's right, because of holiness. Now, the largest part of the chamber was located in the court of the laity, where two entrances, one from the court. This is a model that Joe has of the one we have on the app, okay? So if you notice, thank you, brother. So if you notice right over here, this is the building we're talking about. I have the app, but I wanted to use this, and it's divided in two, right? You see the, right here, the Sanhedrin. Right here you have the hewn stone on this chamber, and this is where the laver was. Okay, this is higher in holiness than that one. This is holy, but this is holier. You see the little steps there? Because of elevation. So when you guys are done here with my teaching, come and check it out. And it's really look cool in the on the Temple app that you can get for Apple. We're having problems with the Android right now. We're trying to get it fixed, okay? All right, so understanding the structure of the temple will allow you to understand more about what's going on. Next, number 3, on Shabbat or on the feast days, when there's no meeting in the chamber of hewn stone, members of the Beit Din gather at the school of the Temple Mount. Okay? According to the records of Talmudic sources, the Great Beit Din had the following functions, which manifested the exercise partly as a body and partly through committees and of its members. Interesting. 23 Levites, 23 Israelites, and 23 priests. Why? Because they all had legal jurisdiction in different areas. Example, you have municipal court, state court, and federal court, right? Perfect. Can you have a civil lawyer deal with a with criminal law? Federal? No. I'm talking about in crime now. A divorce lawyer for a criminal case? Because there are specialties, right? Well, the temple is exactly the same way. Anything connected with the altar, only the priests have the legal authority to rule. Because remember, Numbers 18, they bear the guilt of the things touching the altar and the vessels of the temple. That makes sense? Okay, once I understood that, everything made more sense. Like, oh, I get it. They're all there, but only the people who have the authority to rule are here in the case. It's only logical. Joe. We need a mic, Joe. Come on. You can come through the middle. You're Joe. You gotta be nice to him. Go ahead.
Tithing. This on?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and talk now.
Tithing. Who'd they give it to? No.
The Levites.
It has to be given to the Levites. And so that's a matter of Levitical law,
Right.
not priestly law. So, that's an example why the court's divided into priests, Levites, and everybody else, is they each have areas.
Yeah,
they go.
take that with you in case you want to say something later. All right, guys? They had oversight over services of the temple, which was required to be carried out in accordance with the law and according to the Pharisaic interpretation. It was decided which priest would perform the service in the temple, midot. They would specially supervise the important ritual acts, such as the service of the Day of Atonement in the Tractate Yomah. They were in charge of the burning of the paradumah, the red heifer, and the preparation of the waters of purification. When the body of a murdered person was found, the members of the Great Sanhedrin took the necessary measures in order to determine in which city, being one closest to the murder, and the sacrifice to bring atonement, or in this case, ransom. I'm going to talk about that later. The word atonement is actually a made-up word. It's not actually in the Bible. Keep that in mind. says was brought, okay? Now, 5, they also decided as to the tithe of the harvest. They sat in the judgment of the women suspected of adultery and condemned to drink the bitter water, sotah. They organized the calendar. Why do they organize the calendar? Think logically. Does every sacrifice was connected with the altar, right? I'm sorry. Was every feast days connected with the altar? Every special convocation? If you Numbers 28 and 29, you need to study that. And that's the glue that ties everything together with the harvest and the altar. You got the harvest, you got the moon, you got the Sanhedrin, you got the priest, you have the altar. Everything works perfectly united to make it legal as when the temple was standing. That's how I know Yeshua was not doing any other calendar than the one ordained by God. Even though some of the high priesthood was corrupt, the office is holy. And by the way, Yeshua did not have the legal authority, and people hate when I say this, to change the calendar. Why didn't he? Why do we, and how come Yeshua didn't? The Son of the living Elohim comes, and there's a problem with corruption. He took issues with the Sadducees. How many times do you find Yeshua arguing with the Sadducees? 3 times. That's a great message to let them know, yeah, no. You know, but they still had the office. They still had to do their service, but the Sanhedrin Council kept them in check. You do it the way we prescribed because God gave the authority. They have to submit to it because they also knew that if they messed it up, they bear the guilt. So maybe they're corrupt outside the temple, but when it comes to things inside the temple, they needed to be on point because they bear the guilt. And I don't think they wanted to die. They didn't believe in eternal life anyway, or the afterworld. Okay? All right. They wanted to enjoy the world as we knew it. I'm talking about the high priestly family, more so Ananias. All right. It says they declared the calendar and provided correct copies of the Torah. 6, in general, they decided all questions and questioning related to religious laws and dictated the final decision as to the sentence of the teacher promulgating conflicting views on the traditional interpretation of the law. We don't have that today. When someone in the movement does something that creates chaos, where's the accountability? Where's the meeting amongst leaders to discuss it and compare notes to bring order? When was the last time you heard a teacher says, guys, I was teaching this and I was wrong, I have to rectify. Please don't buy my product and do whatever. You know? I had to learn to do that. You know why I know how to do that? Because I was a professional baseball player. And I learned really quickly early on in my career that if I don't listen to my coaches, you know, when I'm in a slump, I'm going to continue to be in a slump. And I remember the reason why I got to AA, and I could have gone to the big leagues, but, you know, I got to AA, and I was practicing all the time, but the coach never came to me and told me anything when I was doing well. He let me fail first to gain leverage. When I asked a question, he gave me the answer. And I didn't like making changes, but I knew if I listened, I would do better, and I wanted to do better. Martial arts, I do jiu-jitsu. I train 5 times a week. And it humbles you. One day you do great. The next day, a 20-year-old is running circles around you. And it's like really messed up when you think you know something. And then when he keeps doing a technique on you, and then you have 2 options. Get mad, go home and quit. I'll say, okay, you beat me. I tapped. I accept that you beat me. Hey, how'd you do that? Oh, yeah. You made this mistake. So I kept doing it. I said, well, how do I fix it? Show me the counter. He showed it to me. Now I become better. Thank you for making me better. You beating me, show me how to improve. Now I could be a better partner for you to make you better. We don't do that biblically. We don't want to challenge one another. We don't want to question one another in a good way so we can grow and we can develop. Is this making sense? The name of God, Jerusalem and his temple. In my opinion, this is the kicker here. When we change and we give authority to a different place other than the one God chose, we are profaning his name. Would you agree with that statement, Joe? If God says, I have chosen this city to be the place where I have rest my feet, Ezekiel 43, verse 1 through 6, the place where I place my name forever, and now we're teaching that the Qumran community is the place that now has the authority. We got a problem. You just profane the holy name of God because God is the one who says, he never says, my name is not there if the priests are corrupt. No, we have the responsibility to live up to the holiness of the name. He is not going to minimize his holiness for us. And that's what bothers me, that we are so right now in a position that we are letting our own interpretation overrule God's desire for us to respect his honor and his authority. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 28 and 29. For will God really dwell on the earth? Behold, the heavens and the earth of heavens. The heavens and the heavens of heavens could not contain you. How could this house that I built? You must regard the prayers of your servant and his plea. O Adonai, my Elohim, listen to the pleading and to the prayer that your servant is praying before you this day, so that your eyes will be open to this house night and day, to the place which you said. Very important. Even Solomon understood that it was God who said, you have placed your name there. I mean, you have to be pretty brave to read this verse and disregard that Jerusalem is the place he's chosen. How do we know? Let me ask you a question. Was the fire coming down on the altar fall on the Qumran community or Temple Mount in Jerusalem when it was dedicated? So why are we listening to the wrong place where it has no legal authority according to the Bible? Meaning that you now bear the guilt of anyone who's following suit. You want to be a priest? Good luck with that one. You bear all, that means that the blood of those people is on your hands. See, we don't want to talk about this stuff. And this is the reason why I'm very much always quoting sources, giving you the resources, telling you where I get everything from, because I recognize there's only one fear that I have in this world. One fear. If you have a knife, I'll run, but I have no choice. I'm going to get cut, but I think I could go home. A gun, depending on the distance, and if you're a good shot, okay, whatever. But if I have to defend, I have an idea how to hopefully survive. I'm not saying that I'm going to, but I'm going to do my best. Get it? But to profane God's holy name and willfully continue to do it and not listen to anybody, to allow me to learn, to respect it, to revere him, to honor him, and to give him the due respect that my king deserves is heartbreaking to me, that we came from ignorance to the Torah through the faith in Yeshua. And now we are doing the same thing Christianity did, changing everything holy. We've gone back full circle. No wonder many people going back to Christianity amongst the Hebrew roots people. How many places do they read the Torah anymore? How many places do they read the commandments? How can you have a Shabbat service and you don't read the commandments of the Lord in the Torah portion? Come on now, I want to challenge you. I mean, this is the day that God has set aside for us to just come before him and listen to his words and what he says for us to do. Now we want to reinterpret what he says, and we change everything holy. How in the world can you talk about a different calendar and read the book of Leviticus the next month or so? I don't understand it. I just truly don't get it. It's heartbreaking. It really is. And unfortunately, we're not having ears to hear. Solomon understood. This is the place which you said my name will be there, to hear the prayers that your servant prays towards this place. 1 Kings 9:3. The Lord said to him, I have heard your prayer and your plea which you have made before me. I have consecrated this house which you have built by putting my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. Did he say my eyes and my heart will be there only if the priests are perfect? Am I making a good case? I'm not trying to tell you to believe me or to follow what I do. That's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to give you the counter response to what everyone is teaching. That's it. I'm not saying the people who are teaching it are bad people at all. I know a few. They're great people. But they're not really being equipped with the area that allows them to see a broader perspective. Let me give you an example. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 23, and I showed this to Howard yesterday, right? And I'm going to revisit it real quickly and keep moving on. Leviticus 23, verse 9. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, verse 10, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which which I give to you to reap its harvest. Then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. So how can you change the days of the Omer when there was a temple ritual that no one can do today? But everyone keeps going to the verse that is after the Sabbath. That's the argument. They completely miss the first part, which is the key to understand the rest. It's not legal until the priest waives it. And because there's no temple, there's no Sanhedrin, there's no priest right now officiating in the altar, guess what? You have to go by the last decree of the Sanhedrin Council. Until the high priest comes back, until the altar is set up, until now the high priest is there, and then I want to see what they're going to do. Because when that's restored, none of us can do whatever we want, guys. According to Torah law, we all, whether you like Jewish people or not, you have to submit where the rulings come from Jerusalem. This is actually going to create civil war in Israel, by the way. Do you think the Knesset is going to submit to a new Sanhedrin that is so religious that half of them don't believe in what they're saying? I mean, think about it. Okay, is this making sense? I'm getting all pumped. I just love the word, man. I really love the Lord, you know. And I've been doing this a long time, just like Joe has. And sometimes it's a little disappointing when we're not at least given the opportunity to state our case. You don't have to think I'm right. At least give me the opportunity to state my case. Just hear it out. But not even that, because we study temple. That's irrelevant. Okay? We'll see when the altar is dedicated. When the altar is dedicated, you're going to be the most famous people in your block. I'm telling you, all your buddies that don't talk to you right now, they'll be calling you. Yo, man, I'm confused. How do we deal with this? And then you say, you should have gone to the temple courses, man. 2 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 4 and 7. And he said, blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who spoke with his mouth with David, my father, and with his hands he has fulfilled his saying. From the day that I brought my people out of the land of Egypt, I did not choose a city among all the tribes of Israel to build a house in order for my name to be there. Nor did I choose a man to be leader over my people of Israel. But I have chosen my name to be there in Jerusalem. Read that again. Read that with me. It says, but I have chosen to be where? I have chosen David to be over my people, my people Israel. Now it was in the heart of David, my father, to build a house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. Guys, this to me is a very important point. It says there in Jerusalem, not in the Galilee, not in the Habracha, the Mount of Blessing where the Samaritans are, not in the Qumran where people say. It's in Jerusalem. See, this is a problem. Now it's a problem of authority. Who are we going to be submitting to? Because if you submit with the people who have moved the authority of God from Jerusalem someplace else, that's rebellion, folks. Plain and simple, it's rebellion. The Bible clearly says where the authority comes from, to whom it was given to, and everything. So why do we continue to fall for the prey? For anything that sounds logical. How about facts? Yes? So far, so good? Exodus 23, for me, is the proof that if you follow a calendar, it better be because it's Israel in the land of Israel right now, although the harvest is not counting for the temple to take it because there's no temple. But there's still a harvest, right? So every time I take my tour to Israel in November, it's always after the harvest. When I get there, the olives have been picked, everything's there, after Sukkot, right? What does Exodus 23, verse 14 and 17 say? 3 times a year you will hold a festival for me. You will keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread for 7 days. You will eat unleavened bread as I commanded you at the appointed time. At the appointed time. Who determines the appointed times? Who did God give the authority to do the appointed times? Gentiles who came into the faith in the 21st century? I mean, I don't mean to be funny, but it's true. I mean, think about what we're doing. Think about what we're doing. When I learned this, it scared the living daylights out of me. Let me put it this way. When I learned this, I realized that the Lord had the legal right to kill me. Because I was teaching Torah and I was teaching people to transgress the commandment. thinking that I was right. My intention was honorable. I thought I was teaching people to do the right thing. Maybe that's why the Lord is not eliminating people, because they know that our intent is to teach people what we know. The problem is that we think we know more than we do. I learned really quickly, learning with Joe, that I did not know much. I remember that. There was I was more about sacred name when I met him. I was not a sacred namer, but I would use Yod He Vav He all the time. And then I didn't challenge him. I just basically asked him a question. Hey, Joe, why don't you this? Joe said, hey, can I give you homework? Sure. I had a book that I didn't read at the time. And he says, you have this book? Yes, I do. So read this chapter. And I read the chapter. Halfway through the chapter, I needed to stop and say, wow, I'm wrong. Joe was right. And I called him and I told him, thank you. I finally understand. And then it was kind of hard because I have to make a transition. Now I know the name of the Lord is holy, but there's a lady, bless her heart, I don't know what she is now, I hope she's not here. I thought about frequencies and stuff, and she sent me a soap. So I like use, goat's milk soap and all that stuff. I think it's good for your healthy. But she put the name of God in it. And I got the gift. I called her, I said, thank you for the gift, but I can't use that. But why? You put the name of God in it. I'm not going to take a shower using the name of God. Really? She goes, well, there's power in the name. I'm going, no. I mean, that's to the extreme because the desire is there's power in the name. So logically to her, soap, no, that's an affront to his holiness. We know the name. We know there's power in the name. But there are rules to when you use a name. So every time when people always adamant about the name and they judging about the name, I ask them. Immediately I say, okay, you believe in that sacred name? Yes, I do too, but do you know when to use it? They go, no. What is the temple protocol every time you heard the name? Then how come we don't do that? You see, you want to follow the name so strictly, then follow the protocol of how to honor the holy name of God every time you use it. It goes hand in hand. It's a temple protocol. When I understood that, I knew that the Jewish people, it's not that they don't respect the name, it's just they understand its holiness. So they don't want to use it idle. Now, I do not agree with them when they change Elohim to Elokim. That's a little bit too much. Because that's not Yod He Vav He. Just call them Elohim. It's okay. You don't have to say Elokim, changing the He for a K, because I don't agree with that, but that's okay. That's not about Yod He Vav He. Again, we get so much into these little bitty things that we miss the point. For example, I have people telling me, well, I don't believe in the story of Noah. It's real. Okay, so what's the message behind the story of Noah? I never thought about that. There's a message of the story of Noah. Okay, let's say you don't believe in the story as it was a global flood or whatever, or even that it was real. Okay, fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But what is the message behind that story? They don't know the message. It's resurrection. So even if it's not true, which I think it is, even if it's not true to some people, but I believe it is 100% true, the message is about resurrection. So we want to prove that it's true or not, and we miss the story behind the story. Yes? And we do that with everything. We read something and we are so dogmatic that we don't see the story behind the story. And then we do this here. Are you with me? It says, I commanded you at the appointed time, the month of Aviv, spring, because in it you came out from Egypt, and no one will appear before me empty-handed. You will keep the feast of harvest with the first fruits of your work when you sow in the field. And then read the last part with me. And you will keep the feast of harvest gathering when the year goes out. Then you'll gather your work from the field. When you gather your work from the field. Joe, I got a question for you. Can you celebrate Sukkot before this event happens? Please get the mic. Can you celebrate Sukkot before the harvest is gathered?
No.
According to Torah law, no.
Okay, no.
It's illegal, right?
It's illegal, yeah.
Okay, so that would be trespass and ma'al, sin against God.
Right.
Because it has to be at its appointed time.
Right. which means that they had to set the Nisan at their point at the correct time, so that the harvest would be in during Tishri.
Now you understand why they add a second month if the Aviv is not ready. Now is that making sense? Because it's not only the sighting of the moon, it's also the harvest, because it's the agricultural cycle. Now it makes sense. New Testament evidence, the disciples kept the calendar declared from the temple. John chapter 5, the Feast of the Jews. How come in John chapter 5, he didn't say, no, we don't follow the Passover. We're going to go to the Qumran. He didn't say that. If this was such a big issue, how come we don't find anybody saying anything anywhere? This was a big deal. Is it a big deal today? Don't you think a calendar would have been a big deal in the first century? Everything hinges on that. Also, John 2:3, Yeshua went up to Jerusalem. I have people tell me, oh, he just went up. He didn't want to be there. It's like the Hanukkah thing. People are so anti-Semitic. They actually say, well, Yeshua was just there. No, he's celebrating the dedication of the temple. That's important. He came to restore God's honor and authority on the earth. What is the problem with Hanukkah? It's the dedication of the altar and the temple. You think we will celebrate that, but we don't do it. Okay? It says, John 6, preparing for Passover. Again, perfect opportunity for John to say, Yeshua did not really agree with those guys, but he went anyway. Right? John 7, verse 38 and 39, Yeshua's at Sukkot, the last great day of the feast. How come did he go to the temple? And the Qumran is out there. Why did he go to Qumran celebrate Sukkot? I mean, come on. Has anybody asked these questions to these people? I mean, we have to go by the evidence. If this was such a big issue according to the way it's been presented to Yeshua and the disciples, then how come there's no evidence on anyone challenging it literally when everything else has been challenged? Yes? Am I making a valid point, maybe? Acts chapter 2, day of Pentecost. Yeshua even tells them, no, just wait. He resurrects, spends 40 days with them. And then after that, he says, you're going to restore the kingdom to God now? Kingdom of Israel? No, you got to wait. Wait for when? For Pentecost. According to whose calculations? Qumran community? Oh, in Jerusalem. Oh, I thought the name was in the Qumran. In Jerusalem. So the Holy Spirit came down on the day of Pentecost in Jerusalem. Is that legit now? Or is that going to be diminished? Might as well throw the whole New Testament out. Because if this is not going to hold water, and then we're going to keep following what everyone's interpretation is, we're not any better than all the 49,000 denominations who have changed the Word of God. We're just another one. And that we're not making a difference. You see? And we need to understand that, there's biblical ways of doing things. Acts chapter 20, verse 16. Actually, in Acts chapter 18, verse 18, Paul's in Cenchrea, which is right there in the isthmus of Corinth. It's really interesting. I found it. I went there, and I thought it would be something much greater than what it was. And go, wow, this is Cenchrea? Paul was here. It's not really, ¿verdad? Que no gran cosa. Nice beach, though. Okay? It's very calm. You can see why it was a port. Okay? But Paul goes there. He does an Nazarite vow. But wait a minute. In chapter 20, he goes to Pentecost in Jerusalem. And in chapter 21, they tell him, take a sacrifice with 4 other men. And then he did the days. How come he didn't go to the Qumran community? Why didn't he go? No, James, I don't follow this calendar. James told them, do what we tell you, so everyone will know that you keep the law and you walk orderly. Paul would have said, no, I don't follow that. Why Paul didn't do that? I don't mean to be sarcastic. I'm being honest. Paul did not challenge James. He could have said, no. Can you imagine the soap that we would have had developed out of that chapter if Paul would have challenged it? It's a whole soap. It's a movie. I'm telling you. If Paul would have said, no, I'm going to the Qumran, you're all corrupt. He didn't do that. He said, yes, sir, whatever you say, I'm going to go tomorrow, the 7 days. And then after the 7 days, I'll do the announcement. And then I'll cut the hair and put it in the fire. And I'll bring the offerings that pertain to this. And he went to the temple. He got arrested in the temple. Guys, the evidence is not pointing to the way it's been presented. The evidence is completely different. So now I submit to you, I'm not trying to convince you, that's not my job. I'm just trying to propose questions that will make you think, and you go back and look it up, and then you look at the other evidence. Where is the mention of the Qumran community as a point of authority anywhere in the Bible? Anywhere? Okay, I'll bet all the money Danny has. I'm not a betting man, but I could bet this money you saved. You saved Dan. You did. Okay? So what I want you to consider is that there are rules in the scriptures. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. What is wrong with doing it the way Jewish people have done it for so long? I had a problem with that too from 99 until 2008 that I got together with Joe. We were doing all kinds of calendars. I was confused. I was not really studying the temple the way I do it now. Once I understood the structure of authority, then it makes sense. And then I decided I need to adapt. I need to follow what the Bible says. And I happily keep everything the way the Jewish people do it. So at least on one thing, and there's more things that we agree on, by the way, that we are doing something that lines up. Because I recognize, and this is, by the way, this is the reason why every Jewish person will follow that calendar. And I talked to the secretary of the Sanhedrin Council about 10 years ago. I asked him, how come you don't follow the calendar? You're back in the land. He goes, well, we can't. He goes, there's no high priest, there's no altar, and there's no Sanhedrin. And then he said this, when those things are in place, we all have to go back to the ruling. And I said, got it. So what would happen if the altar is dedicated, the high priest is established, and the Sanhedrin will come back in? Are we all going to submit to the rulings coming from Jerusalem? Trust me, they'll call everybody out. And the thing is, once they call it out, according to Torah, there's nothing we can say about it. Whether you think they are legit because they don't believe in Yeshua. By the way, that's another thing. Oh, they're not legit because they don't believe in Yeshua. Newsflash, people. When God told Aaron that he can do the job, was it a prerequisite to believe in Yeshua as Messiah to do their work? It's like me saying, I'm not going to let my doctor touch me because you believe in Jesus? If you don't believe in Jesus, I won't I'm not going to let you operate on me. That's illogical. All I care right now is the guy has the proper qualifications to be a doctor to know what he's doing. If he believes in the Messiah, praise the Lord, even better. But if he doesn't believe in Messiah, but he's the best doctor to get me fixed up, I pray that he'll do the right thing because my faith is in him. You get it? So we keep reinventing excuses not to submit. But it's interesting that in the first century, it says many of the priests believe in the faith, but it doesn't tell you how many. And then we see Paul taking the offerings, and then it doesn't tell you, oh, he went to priests who believe in Yeshua, because their call was based on the office, based on the genealogy. Now, do we all want them to believe in the Messiah? Absolutely, guys. We know why. We want them. But that doesn't mean that they cannot do their office just because they don't believe in Yeshua. And by the way, let me challenge you with this, and I'll finish with this one. Would you blame the Jewish people today why they're not believing in Yeshua? The way we're following 20,000 calendars and the way we're profane. We don't even know how to wear talit the right way. People are using talit as mantles for their pulpits. I mean, think about it. I have to repent out of that one too. Well, it's a thing to see. Oh, nice talit. Let me put it right here. No, that's an offensive thing. It's actually something you use for prayer. So I'm trying to share people, guys, I made that mistake. Please don't do that. You know, I'm learning the rules. That's it, so that we can gain credibility, so that now we have a point of reference and we can have a bridge with Jewish people. I have the opportunity to go to Israel. Now I have rabbis who allow me the honor to sit and talk freely. They don't feel defensive about what I believe. We can talk. And they're always blown away that we speak in their language, but yet we have our values and we believe it. And one of them actually said, Yeshu, and I told them, I said, Rabbi, with all due respect, you know what I believe. You know how I walk. You know, I'm not an avodah zarah, because you know what I do. Please do me a favor. Call him Jesus if you want to, but don't use Yeshu. That's offensive to me. And I respect you as an Orthodox. And he goes, Betach. Okay, I got you. From that moment on, he respects me. You see what I mean? Because Yeshu is the derogatory name for Yeshua in Judaism. Okay, Yeshu, not Yeshua. So when I have a rabbi say Yeshua, I know he's coming in right off the get-go with an insult to my Messiah. And I'm not allowing that. I'll respect you, you respect me. You may not agree that I believe in Yeshua, not a problem. But do not minimize the Messiah that allow me the access to the Hashem, to the Lord, so now I can be part of the people. So we got to know where we can go, how far we can go. Guys, listen. So as you study this, consider this. You have the book, you have the evidence. Hopefully now, when you go back and you think about these things, you have a better balance to compare both sides. Remember, the authority, the place, okay, and who. To whom he gave the authority, the place, and who and how. Ask all those questions, and then when you have the people presenting another option, challenge them in a good way, in an educating way, so that they can at least consider the information. Amen? Hopefully this was a blessing to you.